This is like weird. Like I like want to stand on top of the table, but I feel like that might be dangerous. So actually, yeah, I'll do this. This is cool. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Sometimes I talk way too loud, and other times I barely talk at all, which you're probably surprised by. Okay, so there's like somewhat of a multimedia aspect to this project, and it might not work, so if you guys could just be like really kind, that would be great. Also, can we like take a deep breath together, because I drink a lot of coffee today and my heart is beating like this right now. So, cool, thank you, I needed that. Okay, so this is the last short story I started writing, and it's not done at all, and this is like super raw. So hopefully you'll tell me it's great, even if you think it's terrible. Thanks. Its working title is Someday You Might Read This, but probably not, but it'd be funny if you did, because that means I wasn't the only woman on earth. Okay, so first of all, let me say, fuck you, asshole. You're alive. I'm just kidding. I mean, kind of. I for real think it's cool that if you're reading this, it most likely means you're a human, and that means planet Earth is still inhabited. But it also means this homie flying into space with a funny, albeit potentially bodiless being is some bullshit. Although, I gotta say, I've probably done more insane and moronic things for love. Like, this one time, I purposely slipped on some ice as a means to get my boyfriend to stop talking to my roommate, or more specifically, her breasts, so he would pay attention to the physical manifestation of my existential suffering and insatiable lovesickness. But instead of falling gracefully, I slid off the sidewalk into oncoming traffic, causing an accident where an elderly man broke his nose and a skunk died from tire burn. I will never get the image of that flat white line of fur on the cement out of my head. What I'm saying is, you're probably a stronger woman than I, which is why you are alive, and I'm about to shoot myself like a $2 rocket into space. You are a woman, right? Let's be real. No man could survive alone for more than like a second. If you're all like me, your breasts are now gone, and your crotch resembles that of one of those creepy Victorian dolls whose eyes seem like really fucking real. What I'm saying is, I hope you are also experiencing whatever insanity has caused me to turn into this newly genderless human thing. It's been really freeing. It's like I can finally be a person who is respected and not expected to be anything in particular, or think about things in a certain way just because of my formerly really amazing sponge-like anatomy. I guess it also helps that literally no one else is around. As Jean-Paul Sartre once said, other people are dicks. Or something like that. Except for Bob, of course. If it wasn't for Bob, everything would be different. First, a caveat. If you are reading this for real, and you are alone, and actually really freaked out and lonely, or you are reading this and are surrounded by some sort of human-like species, but you are still really lonely, I hope you find your Bob. Because if there's ever been, or ever will be a God, Bob is genderless, says the Book of Bob, are like Bob. The day I woke up as the last woman on earth, it is Bob who convinces me I'm not crazy. Imagine me waking up in my shitty apartment as usual, first noticing that my cat is gone, and then some motherfucker took all my knickknacks and furniture and stripped me naked. To be honest, and this is embarrassing, it took me like 5 more minutes to realize my breasts and vulva were also nowhere to be found, because I was really preoccupied with trying to find my French press and coffee before I dealt with whatever fucked up universe I found myself in. Addendum. My French press is yet to be found. I hope you know the joys of a dark roast recently brewed and filtered in whatever world you're reading this from. Moving on. Here are the things I first notice. My bright white walls, once covered in photos, are now bare. The carpet is torn up, showing the hardwood floors. My doorknob, gone, and the windows sealed shut. Outside, at first all appears to be normal before I notice that not even the leaves on the trees outside my window are moving. Suddenly, I feel very alone and frightened. I wonder if the wind has deserted me. Clawing at my chest for my breath, I sit on the floor and rock myself back and forth, wondering what I should do next when the thought occurs to me. I may never get to watch Catfish, RuPaul's Drag Race, or Chopped again. I don't know how much time passes before I fall asleep there on the hardwood floor and later wake to the sound of a telephone ringing. The same sound I remember from the landline in my grandmother's home when I was a child, circa 1992, in case that's helpful for you. I search the entirety of my now empty apartment, the ringing never ceasing until I find myself back in the living room, a tiny white cell phone, the screen only as large as my palm in the middle of the floor. I walk towards it hesitantly, and as soon as I reach its halo, the ringing stops, and I stand still without reaching for it. Ding! A message appears on the screen, and I bend over to read it. Hello! You are the last woman on Earth. Congratulations. Love, Bob. I pick up the phone and examine it. I hold it against my face. Hello? 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 I try to make a call, but I see nothing on the screen except Bob's message and a keyboard below. Who are you? I type, then send. Your new friend, Bob replies immediately. Where the fuck are my real friends? I retort. There is a long moment in which I wonder if I've been too rude and he has abandoned me. Ding! What friends? Bob says. He's also sent an emoji. A smiley face baring its teeth exuberantly while also crying stares back at me. I want to ask who the fuck he is again, but instead I tell him I'm crying even though I'm not because it feels like I should be, and I'm hoping he will give me more information if he sympathizes with me. You're not crying, Bob says, apparently reading my mind. Then, ecosystem rules. Part is as great and necessary as the whole. Oh, I text back, wondering what will happen if I show interest in him. When he doesn't respond, I ask a moment later, where am I? Bob texts back, LOL, with a gun, American flag, bag of money, and flames before the phone goes dark. My only line of communication now gone. I'm fine until I find myself running around the apartment in circles while crying and jumping up and down. There's nothing to do but cry, sleep, or literally run into walls. I listen to my body for any signs of hunger, but there are none. What have I become? The next day, I find the phone on the kitchen counter, already ringing. The screen reads, calling Bob. I put the phone to my ear. I put the phone to my ear. And all I hear is, the Jetsons theme song. I hang up, then text Bob. Funny. Isn't this what you thought the future would be? Bob sends me a winky face and a rocket. How do I know you're telling the truth, I say? There could be a million former women locked up in rooms at your mercy. Sigh, Bob says, then sends me a lightning bolt. Just another day at the patriarch factory, I type. I throw the phone at the window, at the unmoving trees, but it doesn't even make a sound. The window and phone are fine. When I check his last message, it reads, have you not noticed your newly neutered state? Kissy face, rainbow, XY, cool. That's it.
Not sorry until the wild music starts. So our next reader is Steffan Triplett. Steffan Triplett was born and raised in Joplin, Missouri. After attending Joplin High School, he attended Washington University in St. Louis, where he was a John B. Irvin Scholar and a member of Lock and Chain Honor. Dang, man, good. Steffan spent the last year as an AmeriCorps member tutoring math to middle school students in San Antonio, Texas, where he learned that 13-year-olds are the world's best comedians. Steffan is invested in memoir writing and the personal, yet socially relevant essay. A high point in Steffan's life has been when, in the 4th grade, he placed 3rd in the regional spelling bee. It's much better than I would have ever done in the spelling bee. He has a 7-year-old niece named Sage. Yo, I have a 7-year-old nephew. We should organize some play dates. I mean, he lives in Portland, so that probably wouldn't work out. But anyway, everyone, Steffan Triplett.
All right, this is a piece that I've been working on for a while that I had to take a long break from. So I'm excited to read it to you guys, and you can give me any feedback you want. And it's called Promenade. From the main highway, we took a right into rural darkness. Lights were far and few between. A farmhouse here, a few lights on the power line there. We knew we were headed in the right direction when we saw the black and red pentagram spray painted on the pavement. From the pentagram, we drove a few miles until trees no longer lined the road and the fields reached to ends we couldn't see. We parked the car and we waited. We were on the Devil's Promenade. I don't know which came first, the name given to the stretch of East 50 Road, or the satanic symbol that was so mysteriously maintained, the black and red of it always visible to drivers searching for the spook light. Like most teenagers in Joplin, my friends and I often went out searching for the spook light, an urban legend that persists in the area, although I guess rural legend would be more accurate. The light lives in the outskirts of Joplin, where country and night collide. 25 minutes from the center of town, a series of disused roads leads you to its home. Some people think the light is supernatural, a ghost of an old miner, or the product of rightfully vengeful native spirits. Some think it is a product of natural gas and chemicals, or just a countryman's lantern that he turns on and off when necessary. Others think the light is an illusion, a trick caused by the reflection of car lights off of the distant highways. I'm not sure which theory is more believable. But regardless of its origin, legend has it that the spook light manifests as a glowing orb. We usually never saw anything, just spent hours in the car laughing, looking, and trying to pass the time. Ryan's orange hair was the brightest thing among us once the car lights flipped off. And I would watch as he would comfort the scared Alex, or as Colin would playfully spook Sarah, who would giggle before the pair shared a kiss. The romantic combinations were always changing, but never involved me. Holding hands with the girl was not my goal in visiting the promenade. If we had driven all the way out to the middle of nowhere, I wanted to see the light that I had heard so much about. My high school chemistry teacher was the first person I had heard call the area the Devil's Promenade. He liked to tell our class an extravagant story of how he saw the spook light up close. I chased it up a tree, he claimed. He described it as this floating, glowing orb that was purple, orange, and maybe green. He said that he tried to grab the light, but it always managed to elude his clutch. He made it sound like the light had a mind of its own. When he first told us the story, I believed him. Now, I wonder if he was just practicing how to entertain. He's now a mountain man impersonator in his retirement. We weren't afraid of the spook light. We didn't think there was a supernatural force involved. We didn't know exactly what it was, and we didn't need to. But there was something eerie and mysterious about the promenade. It was unsettling. The pitch black of night was scary and just as unknown as the origin of the orb. The lack of city lights and townsfolk, the darkness, and the pentagram left me feeling vulnerable to nature and the world. It was creepy and it was fun, and I just wanted to see it. I think that's it, I said, looking through the windshield of the parked car. I was in the back seat and had to maneuver my head to see around Ryan at the steering wheel. I pointed to an orange glowing light in the distance. It seemed to be moving. It was hard to tell. We all paused in silence. I squinted, trying to tell if the light was really there. It was. It stayed there bobbing up and down ever so slightly. It was teasing us. We decided to get a closer look. We got out of the car and started walking up the road towards the light, watching the small orange ball bounce and flicker. We walked for 5 minutes and realized the spook light, still levitating there, seemed just as far away from us as it had 5 minutes ago. It must have been farther away than we thought. We decided to go back to the car and drive to it. I got back to the car and buckled myself in. Ryan started the car and I looked through the window once more. "I don't see it anymore," I said. None of us did. We struggled and strained, our necks crooked wildly, looking around for any form of light. Someone said that we must have scared it off. Someone wished we'd seen it up closer. "At least we saw it," I said. Things were different now that high school was over. My first year of college was a change for me. I went off to a bigger city, St. Louis, to attend Washington University, and resolved to not be as intimidated as I was in high school. I came out and was doing new, exciting things. I felt more like myself than I ever had, the typical story. But the summer after college, having to return back to Joplin, I found myself thrust back into old routines. I picked up my friend Victoria from her house. I wasn't looking forward to going to the Devil's Promenade again that night, but I was glad Victoria was coming along. She had quickly become one of my best friends at the end of high school, and nothing had changed after I came out. She was the most unfazed. We met some of our friends in the parking lot of a McAllister's Deli, and we waited for some others. My stomach lurched as Sarah came up to us, wearing a sweatshirt I had bought her earlier in the year. "Are we still going to Spook Light?" she asked. Sarah and I had been friends since elementary school. Our classes together, nights at youth group, and shared mission trip vacations had made us inseparable. She was my true best friend. I was most worried about coming out to her. I didn't want to ruin our near decade of friendship. I came out to her in a Facebook message at the beginning of the school year. It probably wasn't the best way to do such a thing, but there's really not a good way, and I was too afraid to say it out loud to her on the phone. It was the longest Facebook message I've ever written. She responded how I feared she would. She figured that it wasn't my choice to be predisposed to homosexuality, but that acting on it was failing a test that God was giving me. She told me this, but insisted that she still loved me and our friendship. I hoped that she would eventually grow and warm up to what I now considered part of my life. After months of me trying to explain my thoughts and reasoning on why being gay was not wrong, I thought she had made some progress. She began to openly acknowledge that I was gay and would sometimes even ask me advice on talking to guys and if I thought a boy was cute or not. In the spring, I got my left ear pierced. "Isn't that false advertising?" she asked. I told her that I thought the right ear, gay ear thing was either a myth or outdated. I was annoyed, but at least we were talking about my sexuality over the phone and not in an instant message. But these progressions weren't important. Our friendship was clearly strained. We always ended up back at the same place. As upsetting as it was, I began to see Sarah as a lost cause, but I couldn't completely let go. Earlier that summer, one of my friends had passed away. I kept thinking that maybe I should hold on to a friendship while I still could. So when Sarah walked up to us all in the parking lot, wearing the navy Washington University sweatshirt I had given her when we were still best friends, I saw it as a sign. Coincidentally, I was wearing my gray college sweatshirt. We matched. I'd given her the navy because I was afraid it would clash with my skin tone. People had told me navy and brown don't go together. I liked the gray anyway. Maybe there was still hope for our friendship after all. We piled into 2 cars and drove over the black and red pentagram and perched at our usual spot from our high school years, next to the gravel driveway of a distant farmhouse with several cows that we could only hear and not see. We sat in the car for a few minutes before remembering it was warm out. My body remembered the routine. We all exited the cars and piddled around. Someone peed in the grass and Ryan tried to scare some of the girls. Things were normal. Sarah kept her distance, or I kept my distance from her. The group decided that we weren't close enough to see the light like we had been when we had seen it, so we continued down the road. I was hesitant to stray too far from the cars. I wasn't as fearless as I used to be. I was more aware of my position in the world. We were in the middle of nowhere, and with nothing in sight, no spook light to guide us, my apprehension was rising. My friends weren't as concerned as I was. I wanted to just drive closer. "But it's nice out. We'll be fine," Ryan said.
So I am delighted to introduce the first half of our Wonder Twin pair of poets. Suzannah hopes to become better at writing introductions. Rather than create one last night, she went to Hemingway's and accidentally won a ticket to a Three Doors Down concert. Good for you. As Wikipedia explains, Three Doors Down is an American rock band from Escatawpa, Mississippi that formed in 1996. The band originally consisted of Brad Arnold, Todd Harrell, and Matt Roberts. Daniel Adair played drums on tour from 2002 to 2004. In 2004, Suzannah herself was in a band called Where's Your Chair? They could only play London Calling all the way through, but that didn't stop them from booking a gig at Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell's 50th birthday party. Their drummer quit 2 weeks before the show to pursue the 9th grade. But Where's Your Chair performed epically through 2 rounds of London Calling and an encore performance of London Calling. Suzannah Spaar.
So yeah, that's all true. So that's about like as funny as this is gonna get. I'm gonna start off with a super fresh poem. Might be familiar to Poets and Workshop who actually read the wiki posts, which I'm sure you all did. It's called Armand is the Grand Dame, the Grand Demon. He speaks in 5 parts. 1 is Mississippi. It's early for this. The 1/4 inch of flat lager left stewing in the bottle. It's become an ashtray. He doesn't finish the rest. 1 is your school skort you bled through too soon and buried under needles near the rabbit cage out back. Didn't you know this would be hard? Didn't you know your house was 2 houses? Do you watch it? I placed 6 pennies on the track. I left with a raft. 4 is Mississippi. My brother's birthday is a cake of 12 layers and a dish of rabbit. Armand cooked all day and ate Ritz. His mother's vase by the river. The glass blooms. It's warm with storm water, fastened in silt. Your father detaches, carries home to his home. All right, next up is a poem I wrote when I was watching a little too much reality TV. Which, if there is such a thing. It's called God at 11. The boy pulls a thread from the thigh of his polyester flood pants. He has a little dog. He feeds it every day, a bit of thread. I killed my bread starter. It looks alive, but I cannot get my dough to rise. I fed it every morning like your mother, who throws a cup of sand each day into the wind, trying to fill the holes in the ozone. Still, one afternoon, my dough felt my touch and shuddered. Oh no, not you. I am done with this shit. Are you dead? I asked. But no, just bored. On the TV in the next room, a woman states, I don't have time for this. I need to focus on my chili cook-off. She means business. What will happen when the boy spins every strand of his trousers into nothing? He's not worried. He doesn't need pants to go swimming. I'm not going to read that one. I'm going to keep this really short because we're all really just here for the free beer and Nina's cookies. So this is my last poem. It's a little long though, so. It's called Series of Rivers. When you fainted, Olma, I caught your breath, held it in a tiny jar once used for mustard, around the edge a tang of gold, sour musk of a lifetime smoker's condo, sheets left to sprout in the damp pit of a washing machine. Trace odor of sun shower is the first ingredient in my potion. Stir with a slotted spoon. Dried water is my last. I know, my dear, what you must be thinking. Witchcraft is for the birds. Don't fret, sweet Olma, there is no such thing as birds. Take me, for example. I too mortgaged my house with ghosts. The river Lethe is the river of oblivion. One sip of its water and you will forget even your name. It is the only way to be reincarnated. Is it guaranteed? It is guaranteed. It is not guaranteed. Pull the petticoats off the windflower. Once there was a woman whose eyes were black whirlpools. She would not have been ugly had she not been a female. We can't help this. As it was, she would blink 3 slow pulses and her pupils would grow as large as a cave. And from this cave, monsters crawled out. They threw stones. They set everything on fire. Cherry, cornelian, acacia, fig, filbert, calmia, mulberry black, mulberry white, sorrelwood, southernwood, hornbeam, linden, flax, datura, cistus gum, wormwood, redbay, spindle, ulma. Trans. Durable and secret love, argue, reconcile, such treachery, I will not survive you, that's wise. Joyful banter ornaments conjugal love, I feel your kindness, your deceitful charms, I shall die tomorrow. In my absence, you are memory, Ulma, your image is engraved on my heart. As a goddess, Styx was in love with Phlegethon, but he is fire and she got too close. In death, she became a river and flowed through him at last. Styx, of hatred, all things have costs. I am no good. I stamp around the house at night and fill my cup with whiskey and bitters. I haven't washed my sheets in months. Once, I couldn't stand the weight of my dirty underpants, so I left a pair in Goa and in Mysore, 6 in Bombay, 1 in Hospit. I have so much to drink tonight that I am sending one to you. When we toast, make sure you look me in the eye. Still, better to face the monsters than go into the cave. No one who's entered has ever resurfaced, but anyone close could smell the dark pit and hear the pitch silence. When you said to make up your bed, did you mean for me to fill it with painted eggs? There's so much lost on me. Do I hollow out the yolks first? Can I sleep without slicing myself with pigments? I am made up of pigments. The same goes for Acheron and Cocytus. They too come together as water. See the crossroads of their names? Where the O's overlay and the movement is still. There is pain and there is wailing, but there is not one and then the other. Oblivion stands alone. Send me a little box. Fill it with warm leaves. Write me a note that says, "Child, forgive." What happened to the woman? To be honest, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say she met a nice boy and closed her eyes. Alma, you were born with a heart for a hand. The nuns gathered around like a grove and told you, this is a gift. After all, it has a very pleasing sound. The next day they added a gift from the devil and wanted to burn you. You laughed. You were all water. You played them to sleep. That's it.
Our last singer is Eowyn Randall, and I think her intro is best read. So she's worried that any attempt at wit on her part will only succeed in seeming like desperation. So here are the facts. She was born and raised in D.C., has been writing since before she knew the alphabet, which is very impressive, is one of those people who doesn't like cilantro, identifies more readily with the label Hobbit than anything else, and if her first name isn't unusual enough, you should ask her about her middle name, which I will do later. So be clear.
Hi. So I'm going to read the beginning of a short story called Notes in the Margins, and that's basically all there is to say about it. Gus Feldon was rereading Hidden Faces of the Stars on his morning commute when he found the first note in the margin. Pressed up against the wall of the train in his attempt not to touch the person in the seat next to him, Gus was already sweating through his shirt. The note was a spot of chaotic color on the monochromatic page, and the sight of it made Gus's skin prickle. Alexander, the countertenor protagonist, had just finished his aria a 16th of a beat early on opening night, the moment that haunts him for the rest of the novel. Someone had written, "Important thing isn't lack of mistakes, but ability to move past them," in blue ink next to the paragraph, where Alexander stands in the wings trying to catch his breath and stop his heart from pounding. Gus stared at the cramped print on page 27 while the train pulled into and then out of a stop, rocking his body with the train's movement out of habit. He owned this book. He hadn't written that. He didn't remember loaning the book to anyone, certainly not anyone who would write in someone else's book. The rather trite statement continued to sit calmly on the page as Gus traced the curve of the letters, trying to decide whether he recognized the handwriting. It definitely wasn't his. Eventually, Gus turned the page. The blue ink had bled through. It wasn't a traditional blue of a ballpoint pen, but something brighter, like a robin's egg blue. Gus thought that was what John would have called it, and he would know. There was a ghost of the words on the other side. He flipped through the pages quickly, enjoying the flip each one made as it slid out from under the pad of his thumb. No other splashes of erroneous blue caught his eye. He shrugged. One of the many gestures he performed over the course of a day for an audience whose non-existence he could never entirely convince himself of, and resumed reading. When the train arrived at Gus's stops, the only other marks he'd come across were passages he'd underlined or sketched an asterisk next to during previous reads. He'd flipped back to the unexplained note 4 times and read it again each time. Important thing isn't lack of mistakes, but ability to move past them. The train stopped with 3 jolting shutters, and the doors pulled themselves open with a wheeze. Gus shoved Hidden Faces of the Stars in his messenger bag and disembarked, feeling only mildly uneasy. Before Gus Feldon read 20 pages of Hidden Faces of the Stars on his commute home, he checked page 27. It still said, "Important thing isn't lack of mistakes, but ability to move past them," in cramped blue handwriting in the margin. It still seemed like an insipid thing to bother writing in a book that didn't belong to you. There was a Chinese takeout menu secured to Gus Feldon's fridge by a magnet shaped like the Eiffel Tower. His sister had given it to him after her family's last trip to Europe. When he reached for the trifold menu that evening, it wasn't there. Even though he'd been ordering from the same place for almost 3 years now, he still didn't have the number memorized, so he dug through the drawer by the phone, the one filled with old bills and scraps of paper covered in notes he'd made while the phone was pressed between his ear and shoulder, and takeout menus, lots of takeout menus. He turned up one for the Chinese place after displacing most of the drawer. When John had been living there, this drawer was much more organized and regularly cleaned out, but Gus was never sure when he'd need a piece of paper again. There was a bright blue star next to the listing for orange chicken. This sort of 5-pointed star rushed out in one continuous line that Gus had never mastered making himself. Underneath the star it said, 2 orders. Gus hated orange chicken. He hated its cloying taste, which sat around in your mouth long after you were done eating it. He hated that it claimed to be an entree while tasting like a dessert. It seemed wishy-washy, desperate for approval. Allowing himself just a moment for such foolishness, Gus compared the note to the handwriting he found in Hidden Faces of the Stars. He didn't go so far as to get the book from the living room. That would be absurd. He just stared at the curves of the S and the wild loop of the E, its tail veering up unexpectedly. The handwriting in his book was a lot neater than this. He remembered that. But maybe if whoever had written in his book had written carelessly and in haste, this is what it would look like. Gus tacked the menu to his fridge, placing the Eiffel Tower magnet in such a way that it completely covered the direction about how much orange chicken to order, then called and asked for his usual Szechuan pork. Settling onto his couch with Hidden Faces of the Stars, he waited for his apartment buzzer. In the gutter of page 42, next to a sentence he'd underlined in pencil, a sentence that read, "The snow crunched arrhythmically under Alexander's gate and sparked in the glow from the streetlights, casting fractals into the 16th of a beat that was repeating in Alexander's mind." Someone had written, "Pathetic fallacy," in that same blue ink. Gus had no idea what that meant. He remembered underlining the sentence because he'd liked the idea of snow sparking, and he'd wanted to look up fractals. He had a notion of what they were, but it didn't seem to make sense within the context of the sentence. He'd never gotten around to it. He dog-eared the page, wondering how he'd missed this note when he flipped through earlier. Maybe the way the words were crammed into the gutter had hidden them. Turning back to page 27, he dog-eared that one too. The buzzer buzzed. He set the book aside and trotted down the 3 flights of stairs to fetch his dinner. The next afternoon, in the waning hours of his workday, the hours Gus Feldon never managed to be productive in, no matter how much coffee he drank, or water, or how many times he paced from his cubicle to the break room and back to boost his circulation, he Googled handwriting analysis. The first hit was a website telling him handwriting analysis was pseudoscience. Gus made a show of reading the 3 lines of quoted text under the URL so his invisible audience wouldn't think him completely naive, then clicked on the second site. which told him that the way his mysterious notemaker wrote his E's, all in one swift loop, was a marker of a confident personality who often acted without planning first, and that because the A was made in 2 separate strokes, one for the circle and one for the stem, this person didn't have trouble compartmentalizing. Gus realized after reading the 4th characteristic that matched up with some quirk of the handwriting in his book that he was trying to figure out whether they described John. He'd never seen John reading one of his books, and he didn't think, despite John's brash and somewhat careless nature, that he'd be so inconsiderate as to mark up a book that didn't belong to him. If John had read Hidden Faces of the Stars, Gus wished he would have mentioned it. Ever since Gus had first read it, ever since it had first overwhelmed him in the same kind of all-consuming and unexplainable way a particular cloud scudding across the sun could, hitting him in the chest and leaving him clenching and unclenching his fists to contain a surge of momentum he didn't know how to use, Gus had been looking for someone to share the novel with. Maybe whoever Gus shared it with would also feel shivers of longing just under his skin as it turned its pages and could explain to Gus why he did. The office was emptying around him. The glowing clock at the bottom corner of the screen told him it was almost 6. He bookmarked the page on handwriting analysis and shut down the computer.